Right now, in some corner of the world, a woman is giving a man a clear sign of exactly how she feels about him. She isn't using words or sending a text. She's using four specific parts of her body that she can't help but reveal when attraction kicks in. And here's the crazy part. About 93% of guys have no clue what they're actually seeing. They walk right past these signs every single time. By the time they finally catch on, she's already moved on. But that won't be you, not after watching this. What I'm about to tell you will completely flip the way you look at every interaction with a woman from now on. A study featured in the journal Evolution and Human Behavior pointed out that women mostly show romantic interest through nonverbal cues. On average, they do this about 13 times before most guys even start to catch a vibe. 13 times? She's basically shouting at you in a language your brain just hasn't learned to translate yet. Before we dive into this, I want you to hit pause for a moment and really look back at your recent talks with a woman you actually liked. Think about how that energy felt. Did it feel fresh, like something real was happening? Or did it feel like you were both just stuck on a loop, following a script you didn't even know you were using? See, most guys don't mess up because they aren't trying. They mess up because they're staying on the surface while the real vibe is happening at a level they never even touch. And here's the tough part. If your talks feel basic, she already knows how they end. And once she can predict your next move, she stops feeling any spark. Now picture a different scenario. Imagine sitting with her and instead of trying to sell yourself, you create a vibe where everything else just fades out. A moment where she stops to think, not because she's stuck, but because what you just said hit home. That's the turning point. That's when basic attention shifts into real curiosity. And curiosity is what leads to emotional investment. Honestly ask yourself, when was the last time someone looked at you and asked something that made you feel like they actually got you? Not checking you out, not judging you, but truly understanding you. Once you realize how heavy that feeling is, you'll see what women are actually looking for underneath all the fluff. My name is Emily Carter, and I run the Female Game YouTube channel. What I'm sharing with you isn't about cheesy lines or playing mind games. It's about the deep psychology of human connection that most guys never bother to learn. Because once you get this, the game changes. You stop hunting for attention and start becoming the kind of person people naturally want to be around. Think about what most women deal with daily. They get looked at all the time, but they're rarely understood. People talk about their looks, their clothes, or their vibe. They get hit on and complimented constantly. But here's the detail most guys overlook. Being noticed is not the same as being understood. Honestly, after a while, getting all that attention without any depth becomes draining. It leads to a kind of emotional burnout. When every chat feels identical and follows the same shallow routine, she starts tuning out before things even get going. And this is exactly why most guys get ghosted or put in the friend zone so fast. It's not that they don't have value, it's just that they talk in a way that fades into the background. They play it safe with the same boring questions and predictable stories. They try to act perfect instead of just being real. And without even knowing it, they become just another face in the crowd. It's not because they aren't good guys, it's just that their vibe never really leaves a lasting impression. But every so often, something different clicks. She runs into someone who isn't in a rush to fill every quiet moment. Someone who doesn't feel the need to sell himself in the first 5 minutes. Instead, he asks something that actually makes her stop and think. That brief pause, that moment where she snaps out of her routine, is where real fascination starts. That's where a natural emotional spark happens without any force. She suddenly finds herself fully engaged in a way she didn't see coming. You see, attraction works on two different tracks at once, the physical and the psychological. While most guys put all their energy into the physical side, it's the mental connection that actually builds depth, memory, and a real emotional pull. A woman isn't just drawn to a guy's looks or his bank account. She's drawn to the way she feels when she's with him, whether she feels safe being herself, and whether he actually makes her curious. And here is where it gets really interesting. The human brain is built to remember how we feel, not just facts and info. So, when a talk makes her feel a certain way, even if she can't quite explain it, that feeling sticks. It lingers in her mind. It plays back later when she's by herself. And that is exactly how attraction grows quietly, even when nothing obvious is happening. Think about that for a second. It means your goal isn't to talk more. It's to say things that actually matter. It's not about showing off, it's about making a connection. It's not a performance, it's about creating room for her. The best way to do that is by asking the right questions. Not just random or forced ones, but intentional questions that open up emotional doors she doesn't usually share. When you ask something meaningful, you're not just chatting, you're creating an experience. You're showing her that you're actually there, you're tuned in, and you really want to know who she is deep down. That is incredibly rare. It's way harder to find than just basic confidence, humor, or status. Now let's look at what usually happens. Most guys approach a conversation like they're giving a presentation of themselves. They talk about their job, their wins, and where they've traveled. There's nothing wrong with that, but when that's the whole focus, it starts to feel like a show. And acting like you're on stage creates a wall. While you're busy trying to prove who you are, she's still just trying to figure out if she actually likes the vibe of being around you. Those are two completely different things. I once coached a guy who couldn't figure out why his dates never went anywhere. He was doing well in life, spoke clearly, and was even pretty funny. But every single time, it ended the same way. A polite goodbye followed by her pulling away. When we looked into it, the problem was obvious. He was doing everything right on paper, but he wasn't building any emotional depth. So I challenged him to try something new. Instead of worrying about what to tell her about himself, I told him to focus on what he could find out about her. Not in an intense way, but with genuine, relaxed curiosity. The next time he met someone, he asked a simple, unexpected question, and the energy shifted instantly. The pace of the talk slowed down. She started sharing more. She became way more engaged. And afterward, she told him something that shocked him. She said, "I don't know why, but talking to you just feels different." This is what you're really picking up here. It's not just a script, it's a total shift in how you show up. Now, these 7 questions I'm about to break down aren't just some magic words. They only work if you actually mean them. If you're just saying them to get a reaction, she's going to pick up on that vibe instantly. But if you're asking because you really want to get to know her, something incredible happens. She starts to relax, her guard comes down, and she begins to link you with that rare feeling of being truly understood. The first question sounds basic, but it reveals so much. You ask her, what's something you were 100% sure about a few years back that you don't really believe anymore? Then you just listen. This works because it forces her to reflect. It moves her away from the small talk and into her own personal growth. It lets her look at how she's evolved and what life has taught her. When people talk about their personal journey, they naturally open up more. You might hear about past relationships that changed her outlook, or old beliefs about herself she's moved past, or even unexpected challenges. As she talks, she's not just answering you, she's letting you in on her story. Most guys mess this up by jumping in too soon. They try to make it about themselves or interrupt her flow. But if you stay locked in, let her finish, and even allow a few seconds of silence after she's done, she'll feel heard in a way she rarely does. That silence isn't awkward, it's powerful. Think about it. In a world where everyone is trying to be the center of attention, you're the one making her feel like the center of it. That's a game changer. Ask yourself how many people actually listen to you without just waiting for their turn to talk. Probably not many. She feels the same way. So when you become that rare person who actually listens, it leaves a mark that lasts way longer than the conversation. The second question dives even deeper. You ask, when do you feel the most like yourself? This completely skips over the surface level stuff. It's not about what she does for a living. It's about who she is when she's not performing for anyone else. That's a huge area to explore. Her answer could be simple, like enjoying a quiet coffee or being out in nature. Or it could be deeper, like helping someone or feeling at peace. As she answers, she's reconnecting with that good feeling. And since you're the one who took her there, she'll subconsciously start associating that positive state with you. That's how real attraction builds, not by forcing it, but through that connection. Take it a step further. Instead of rushing to the next topic, stay there with her. Ask something like, what is it about those moments that feels so right? Suddenly, the talk has real depth. This is what most people never get to experience, a conversation that actually grows instead of just jumping around. If you're paying attention, you'll see she starts asking you things too, out of real curiosity. When someone feels seen, they want to see you back. So, look at your own talks. Are they creating this kind of experience, or is everything just staying on the surface? In the next part, we'll get into the questions that uncover hidden desires and create the kind of connection most people never find. This is where the energy really shifts. Once a woman feels that emotional safety, the move isn't to rush ahead. It's about guiding things into territory she doesn't usually share. This is where most guys lose their way. They either get too intense or they get scared and go back to boring topics. But if you stay cool and present, this is where things get real. The third question is a massive one. If there were no limits, no fear, no money issues, no one judging you, what would you be doing with your life right now? When you ask this, you'll usually see a thoughtful pause. Most people never get asked this, and they don't even give themselves permission to think this way. Life usually tells us to be realistic, but this question breaks those walls down. It gives her a safe space to imagine her life without boundaries. She might tell you about a forgotten dream or a passion she put on the shelf. You'll see her energy change. She'll get more expressive and maybe even a little vulnerable. The key here is don't interrupt. Don't try to fix anything or give advice. Just let it be. What she's feeling isn't just excitement, it's a sense of freedom. When she links you with that feeling, you become someone truly special to her. Let me give you an example to show you how this looks in real life. Let me give you a real-life example to show you how this works. A woman once mentioned that she'd always dreamed of moving abroad to start fresh, but she never took the leap because she felt like she had to stay close to her family. One guy might jump in and say, "You should just go for it. You only live once." That first reaction actually kills the emotional vibe because it jumps straight into giving advice. But another guy might simply ask, "What do you imagine your life would look like if you'd actually gone?" That second response keeps her in that deep, reflective mood and gives her the green light to explore it more. And that right there is the difference between a chat she'll forget by tomorrow and one she'll keep replaying in her head later. Think about it. How often do people actually feel heard when they talk about their big dreams? Not judged, not lectured, and not rushed, just truly heard. That is incredibly rare. The fourth question shifts into even more personal territory. You ask her, what kind of connection do you honestly feel you deserve? This question cuts right to the core of her beliefs about love, her self-worth, and patterns she might not even realize she's following. Because of that, it usually gets a much deeper emotional reaction than she expected. She might describe a relationship where she's respected and fully supported with total clarity. Or she might hesitate because she hasn't quite figured that out yet. Both reactions tell you something important. When someone hasn't defined what they deserve, it usually points back to past experiences that messed with their expectations. Maybe they settled for less than they should have, or they're still learning what a healthy bond feels like. This is where real trust starts to grow. Not the forced kind, but the natural kind that happens when someone feels emotionally safe with you. Again, your job isn't to play therapist or fixer. It's just to be there, listen, and let her say things she doesn't usually say out loud. When she shares this stuff, she's giving you a tour of her inner world. How you handle that moment determines if she'll keep opening up or start closing back off. Now let's keep going. The fifth question is where things get really intimate. You ask her, what's one thing you wish people understood about you, but they usually get wrong? She might tell you that everyone thinks she's super strong, but in reality, she feels overwhelmed more than she lets on. Or maybe people think she's cold or distant when she's actually just being careful about who she trusts. Maybe she feels like she's always the one giving and never getting much back. In these moments, your presence matters way more than any perfect line. If you get distracted or try to make a joke to lighten the mood too fast, you'll break the bond. But if you just stay there with her and acknowledge what she said in a real way, she'll feel seen. You could just say, that makes a lot of sense, or I can totally see why you'd feel that way. That's plenty. You don't need to overthink it because she's not grading your words. She's feeling your vibe. The sixth question looks at her past, but focuses on growth rather than regrets. You ask, if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be? As she answers, you aren't just hearing a story. You're learning what she values most today. You're seeing the lessons she's picked up along the way. This question is heavy because it brings up the moments that turned her into who she is now. When people look back with that kind of self-awareness, they share their deepest insights without even trying. She might talk about learning to trust her gut, standing up for herself, or just being easier on herself during the hard times. And notice the flow here. None of these questions are just random. Every single one of these questions opens up a different emotional door. Growth, identity, dreams, self-worth, vulnerability, and self-reflection. When you let these layers unfold naturally during a chat, it creates a level of depth that most people hardly ever get to feel. Now, here is a subtle but super important detail. At this stage, if you've truly been present, listened well, and given her space instead of just talking over her, she's already starting to feel something unique about you. This is where a lot of guys trip up. They try to rush the moment or close the deal too fast. Instead, just stay steady. Let the connection breathe. Attraction that builds at its own pace usually lasts much longer and feels way more intense. Before we get to that final question, I want you to think not just about what you're hearing, but how you're going to actually use this. Knowledge is useless if you don't apply it. Next time you're talking to someone, stop trying to think of something cool to say. Instead, ask yourself, what can I learn about her that most people never bother to look for? That one mindset shift changes everything about how you come across. Now we've reached the final question. In many ways, this is the one that ties the whole thing together. You ask her, what does freedom actually mean to you personally? When you ask this, the energy shifts again, not just on the surface, but deep down. Because freedom isn't just an idea, it's a feeling and a core value. It's something people either chase or protect, often without even realizing it. Her first answer might be simple. She might say, freedom is just being able to do whatever I want. But if you stay with her and explore that gently, it becomes so much more revealing. Freedom might mean emotional peace. It might mean not feeling like she has to prove herself to anyone. It could mean independence or the freedom to be her true self without fearing judgment. Here is where everything we've talked about connects. These questions were never just about getting data or answers. They were about creating an emotional experience. A moment where she feels safe enough to think, express herself, and show parts of her soul that don't come out in everyday small talk. When you guide someone through that experience with a calm vibe and real curiosity, something powerful happens. She won't just remember your words, she'll remember exactly how she felt when she was with you. Let's stop for a second because this is the key. Think about the people you feel closest to. It's probably not because they impressed you the most. It's because they made you feel understood. They created a space where you didn't have to filter yourself. That feeling is incredibly rare. Now, imagine being that person for her. Not by being perfect, but by being present, listening without rushing, and asking things that actually matter. This is where attraction quietly turns into something deeper. It's not loud or flashy, it's steady and real. But here is what most guys still find tough. Knowing what to ask is one thing, but knowing how to keep that conversation flowing afterward is what really makes the difference. Because remember, these questions aren't just a checklist to run through. You shouldn't just fire these off one by one like you're conducting an interview. That's going to feel forced and awkward, and she'll pick up on that vibe right away. Instead, think of these as doorways. You open one, walk inside, and just hang out there for a bit. You explore the space. You let the talk flow naturally, and only when the timing feels right, you move on to another one. For instance, if she tells you something deep about when she feels most like herself, don't just check it off your list and move to the next question. Stick with it. You might ask, what was the turning point that helped you realize that? Or do you feel like you get enough of that feeling in your life right now? Suddenly, the talk isn't a structured script anymore. It's alive. There's something low-key but massive that happens here. When you truly listen and respond with thought, she starts to feel something even deeper than just attraction. She feels respected. She feels valued. And those specific emotions build a bond that doesn't just vanish. I'll give you another example. A woman once talked about meeting a guy who didn't try to impress her at all. He wasn't talking her ear off, he didn't try to take over the conversation, and he wasn't pushing a specific agenda. But he asked her one question that stayed in her mind long after the night ended. More importantly, he actually listened to her answer in a way that made her feel like her words carried weight. Days later, she was still thinking about him. Not because of his looks or his car, but because of how different that interaction felt. That's the key word, felt. Attraction based only on what's visible fades fast. But attraction rooted in how someone feels when they're around you, that lingers. It grows quietly and builds over time. So, here's a challenge for you. Next time you're talking to someone, fight the urge to fill every quiet second. Don't feel like you have to prove yourself. Instead, just focus on creating space. In that space, something real actually has a chance to show up. I know what you're thinking. What if it gets awkward? Truth is, silence only feels awkward if you are uncomfortable with it. When you're grounded and present, silence actually becomes part of the connection. Let's talk about something just as vital, your intention. Everything you're learning here only works if you actually mean it. If you're just asking these to get a reaction or to fake a connection, she's going to sense it. Maybe not in her head, but definitely in her gut. When that happens, the bond doesn't get stronger, it breaks. But when you honestly want to understand her and see who she is beneath the surface, everything shifts. Your tone gets softer, your vibe gets more relaxed, and the whole interaction feels natural instead of calculated. This is why being authentic isn't just a nice to have, it's a must. And here's a surprise. When you talk to people this way, you don't just become more attractive, you also start filtering who you want in your life. As you listen more closely, you'll start to see who actually vibes with you and who doesn't. So this isn't just about making her like you, it's about figuring out if you actually like her too. Take a second to think about how you usually act in conversations. Are you trying to be liked or are you trying to understand? Are you just waiting for your turn to speak or are you really hearing what's being said? Moving from performing to connecting is the game changer. When you do this consistently, the pressure disappears. You stop overthinking every little word. You become more chill, more present, and more confident. Not because you're trying to act cool, but because you aren't trying to prove anything. That is what real confidence looks like. I want to give you a quick exercise you can use today. In your next 3 conversations, whether it's someone new or a person you already know, pick just one of these questions. Not all 7, just one. Ask it when the moment feels right, and then do what most people fail to do. Listen completely. Don't interrupt. Don't rush. Don't flip the topic back to yourself. Just listen. Afterward, think about what felt different. Did the talk go deeper? Did they open up more? Did you feel more locked in? Once you see that shift for yourself, you won't have to force anything ever again. It'll just be how you are. I'm curious, which of these questions really hit home for you? Which one do you think would change your conversations the most? Drop a comment and let me know because I read them all and really want to hear your take. And if you've ever had a talk where someone made you feel truly understood, share that story too. Those moments are more important than people think. If this gave you a fresh perspective on connection, hit that like button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. We're going to keep diving into the deep psychology of relationships and behavior in a way that actually impacts your life. That is exactly why I put together my next video. It's called She Won't Say It, but Her Body Already Did 6 Signs. It picks up right where we're leaving off. If the 4 body parts I just showed you tell you she's attracted, the 6 signs in that video tell you she is ready right now. Missing those signs is the #1 reason men fail to lock in a connection that was already theirs. It's on your screen right now. Click it because the worst thing you can do with what you learned today is recognize the attraction and then do nothing with it. That video makes sure you never make that mistake. Go watch it now. I'll see you there.